The Medellín Cartel was not a mere criminal enterprise. It was a sovereign financial power that challenged the monopoly of the Colombian state. At the zenith of its influence, the organization, spearheaded by Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria, generated an estimated $420 million in revenue every single week. This was a logistics empire that operated with the precision of a global shipping conglomerate, responsible for 80% of the world's cocaine supply. The sheer volume of currency generated by this trade created a phenomenon unprecedented in modern economics. Pablo Escobar did not just accumulate wealth, he broke the traditional systems of financial storage and accounting. For 7 consecutive years, from 1987 to 1993, he was documented by Forbes magazine as one of the wealthiest individuals on the planet. Yet the records of his empire reveal a reality of extreme violence, systemic corruption, and a final tactical liquidation on a Medellín rooftop. This is the comprehensive objective record of the $30 billion empire and the operation that terminated it.
The economics of narco-logistics. To understand the death of Pablo Escobar, one must first analyze the weight of his wealth. By the mid-1980s, the Medellín Cartel was funneling 15 tons of cocaine into the United States every day. This was not a clandestine operation of small-scale smuggling. It involved a fleet of Boeing 727s stripped of seats to carry thousands of kilograms of product. The return on this investment was a literal mountain of physical U.S. currency. The cartel's accountants recorded that they spent $2,500 every month solely for the purchase of rubber bands to organize the stacks of $100 bills. The secrets of Escobar's money were found in the limitations of physical storage. Because the banking systems of the era could not process the volume of cash without triggering international alerts, the money had to be stored in calitas, massive, hidden bunkers. These were constructed within the walls of safe houses, under the floors of apartment complexes, and buried in plastic drums across the Colombian countryside. The documented loss was staggering. Every year, Escobar's accountants wrote off 10% of their total cash holdings, approximately $2.1 billion, because it was consumed by rats or destroyed by moisture and mold. This was a financial reality where money was treated as a perishable commodity.
Hacienda Nápoles and the semi-state. Escobar used his wealth to construct a parallel society. His primary estate, Hacienda Nápoles, was a 7,000-acre territory that featured a private airport, a kart racing track, and a zoo containing exotic animals illegally imported from Africa. This was the headquarters of the plata or plomo, silver or lead policy. The objective record shows that Escobar utilized his wealth to corrupt every level of the Colombian government. Those who accepted the silver became assets of the cartel. Those who refused were killed or executed. The wealth also funded a private army of sicarios, young assassins recruited from the slums of Medellín. Escobar transformed these individuals into a tactical force that conducted a war against the state. This period was marked by the assassination of Justice Minister Rodrigo Lara Bonilla and the bombing of Avianca Flight 203, which killed 110 civilians in an attempt to assassinate a presidential candidate. The financial empire was now funding a campaign of narco-terrorism intended to force the Colombian government to ban extradition to the United States.
The Cathedral and the Moncada executions. The peak of Escobar's influence was the construction of La Cathedral. Following a deal with the Colombian government to avoid extradition, Escobar agreed to a 5-year prison sentence. However, he was permitted to design and build his own confinement facility. La Cathedral was a luxury fortress equipped with a soccer field, a bar, and a jacuzzi. It was from this location that Escobar continued to manage the Medellín Cartel. The secrets of his downfall began within these walls. In 1992, suspecting that his top lieutenants, Fernando Galeano and Gerardo Moncada, were skimming profits from the cartel's hidden stashes, Escobar ordered them to La Cathedral. Documented reports confirmed that Moncada and Galeano were tortured and executed inside the prison on Escobar's orders. Their bodies were dismembered and burned. This act of internal violence fractured the Medellín Cartel. It turned his closest allies into informants and led the Colombian government to order his transfer to a standard military prison. Escobar, alerted to the plan by his network of informants, walked out of the back gate of La Cathedral, becoming the most wanted fugitive in the world. The rise of the Search Bloc. The manhunt that followed was the largest in South American history.
the Colombian government formed the Search Bloc, an elite unit of 600 personnel commanded by Colonel Hugo Martinez. This unit was specifically isolated from the rest of the police force to prevent cartel infiltration. They were supported by the United States through Centrospike, a clandestine high-tech surveillance unit that utilized King Air aircraft equipped with sophisticated heat sensing and radio triangulation equipment. The objective was to dismantle Escobar's financial and tactical infrastructure. The Search Bloc began a scorched earth campaign against Escobar's safe houses. Simultaneously, a shadow organization known as Los Pepes, Perseguidos por Pablo Escobar, people persecuted by Pablo Escobar, emerged. Los Pepes was a death squad funded by the rival Cali cartel and former associates of the Moncada and Galeano families. They targeted Escobar's wealth directly, burning his art collections, bombing his properties, and executing his lawyers and accountants. The billion-dollar empire was being liquidated through targeted violence.
The isolation of the billionaire. By late 1993, the man who once appeared on the Forbes list was living in total isolation. The Coletas were being discovered and seized by the Search Bloc at an accelerated rate. Escobar was forced to move every 24 hours to avoid the radio triangulation teams. He was no longer traveling with a private army. He was accompanied only by a single bodyguard, Alvaro de Jesus Agudelo, known as El Limón. The financial records from this final month show a man whose assets were largely frozen or stolen. While he still technically possessed billions in hidden cash, he had no way to access or spend it without revealing his location. He was a billionaire who could not buy a meal without risking his life. His family, his wife Maria Victoria, and his children Juan Pablo and Manuela, had been moved to a government-protected hotel in Bogota, serving as the ultimate bait for the Search Bloc. Escobar's desperation to communicate with them would be his final tactical error. The final triangulation. On December 2nd, 1993, the day after his 44th birthday, Escobar's communications discipline failed. He was desperate to speak with his son. He made a series of 6 cellular phone calls from a house in the Los Olivos neighborhood of Medellín. The technical surveillance teams from the Search Bloc, led by Colonel Martinez's son, Hugo Martinez Jr., were patrolling the area with handheld direction-finding equipment. They pinpointed the signal to a specific 2-story row house. The Search Bloc moved in with a tactical entry team. As they breached the front door, Escobar and El Limón fled to the upper floor and exited through a window onto the sloping tile roof of the adjacent building. The rooftop execution. The sequence of events on the roof occurred in seconds. El Limón was the first to be struck. He was shot and killed as he tried to jump to the next building. Escobar, wielding 2 Sig Sauer pistols, ran across the orange roof tiles. He was targeted by multiple Search Bloc members from the street and from the adjacent windows. The forensic record confirms Escobar was struck by 3 distinct rounds. The first bullet hit his right leg. The second struck him in the back, piercing his torso. The third and final shot was a high-velocity round that entered his right ear and exited his left temple, causing instantaneous death. The image of the Search Bloc soldier standing over the bloodied, barefoot body of Pablo Escobar became the definitive photograph marking the end of the Medellín Cartel.